Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. Here's your host, Brian Henley.
Hey, everybody, what's going on? This is your man, Big B, Brian Hanley, along with Tim Fitzgerald. Welcome back to Big 12 Insiders. I mean, holy mackerel. I mean, first of all, I just said that about an hour ago, and here we are. I mean, there's competition out there all over the place, and here we are competing with ourselves as literally our premiere show on our power rankings is going on right now. But look, we can't – I mean, the news is the news, Fitz. It is what it is. Mike Gundy let go by Oklahoma State just a matter of minutes ago. Look, you said it. You said that he needed to go now if there's no reason to stick around and collect a paycheck. And clearly, look, I was on the give him some grace, but you were 100% right. He had checked out. He had quit. I said that he had quit 2 weeks ago when they got the doors blown off at Oregon. He's taking pictures walking back to the locker room with fans of Oregon. I go, that's a head coach that has quit, that literally doesn't care anymore. They owe him $15 million. Oklahoma State clearly said, we don't care. We'll give you the money. And I just think this is probably what's best for everybody involved. If Gundy wants to coach somewhere again, he needed to get out of there. Oklahoma State wanted to move forward in a different direction. The program had turned sour. And I just thought it was a mistake, Fitz, in general, to even bring him back. I said that earlier on the power rankings. I thought it was dumb to even bring him back. You make him fire all of his assistants, all the guys that he trusts, but you bring him back? Like, that doesn't even make any sense to me.
It didn't make sense to me. He had a staff that had been successful, and they got blamed, basically, is what happened. They fired everyone. Including a friend of mine, Joe Bob Clements, played at Kansas State. Those guys are still collecting checks if they were on the 2-year contracts, and now Gundy is out. I feel for the coaches who came in.
Yeah.
Because, they were sold that we're going to turn this around, and then their boss, it doesn't even look like he wants to attempt to do so.
Correct.
I've lost so much respect for Mike Gundy in this. First of all, go down with your ship. If they're telling you got to fire all your coaches, okay, fire me too. Let's be done with this. Or don't go hire new guys and then mail in your effort, because that's what it looks like he's been doing, just trying to get that next check. I don't know how the buyout and all that worked with last year to this year. Doesn't matter.
Right.
If you got to do it, you got to do it. And I don't know how you find the money. ADs, you got to quit giving these stupid buyouts.
Yeah.
Quit getting pushed around by agents. You're just basically giving in to agents on almost anything. I don't know what Oklahoma State's going to do, but our friend Mclain has a list out, a hot board. CBS/247 has a hot board out. They're a little bit different, but shout out to our Oklahoma State side of 247 Sports. He was ready. He was ready the second that happened. Boom. And then he had the hot board up at noon. He had the hot board up at noon.
Yep.
It's happened at like 11:58.
Yep. Which leads me to believe, and should lead everybody to believe, that this was happening. The people knew that this was happening. They were just waiting for the word to come down. Look, you look at Oklahoma State. First of all, let's start here, Fitz. Mike Gundy was extremely successful in his tenure at Oklahoma State. I have made it abundantly clear. Heck, even so much as this year, I thought he was going into the season the fourth best coach. Last year, I said he was the best head coach in the Big 12. And here's my thing. They were in the Big 12 title game in 2023. Let's not forget that they were literally in the Big 12 title game in 2023. And what Mike Gundy did at Oklahoma State, now granted, he got an influx of funding, which that's why I thought this guy doesn't want to coach anymore. He was mad at Oregon for having a big-time donor. Oklahoma State was the first one with the big-time public donor. They were the first one. And Oklahoma State was a middling program before T. Boone Pickens stepped in and Mike Gundy. I mean, they came in and it turned things around, that influx of cash. But look, Gundy didn't like the transfer portal. He didn't want to use it. They used it this year, but you know that if somebody doesn't want to do something and is constantly bad mouthing it, and then you're going to go into it half-hearted. And I just think the whole off season, I think all of it was half-hearted by Mike Gundy. That's what I think, Fitz. I think the hiring of the assistants, the who you got in the transfer portal, I think all of it was just done as a, you know what, I'm here. I'm going to be here. I'll just bring in whoever. It clearly isn't working. They don't really have a quarterback. It's just a sad situation that's going on from really a guy that, in my opinion, I think it could have ended better because he was that good of a coach.
Yeah, I mean, he was a boss for a lot of years, and it just looks like he ran out of gas. It happens to everyone in almost every profession. Sometimes you just need a fresh start. I think he was just done with it, but he couldn't admit it to himself. This was his 21st season at Oklahoma State. 170 and 90 was his record. Put into context of what his record's been the last season plus this one. That's incredible. He had a lot to the loss total. He's more than 100 wins in Big 12 play. He's 58 years old, as you mentioned, a $15 million buyout. But I think another thing is you just fired your coach. The portal is open. If these dudes if they have a red shirt available and they hadn't played more than 4 games, which Oklahoma State hasn't, they can just hop in the portal, and this never happened. If they have their red shirt available, they can go say, I'm red shirt and I'm out of here. It's incredible. Academics plays a role in that, but this new era of college football is weird. And I don't know what this holds for Oklahoma State football, but as someone in the comments said, O State has to reinvent its athletic department. Mm-hmm. There is no reason Oklahoma State should be so far behind in NIL funding that they apparently are. They just need to really look at everything they're doing, because in this day and age, if you're not competitive in the NIL space or using the portal wisely, you are going to get left behind. And I don't care if you're a 30-year-old coach or a 60-year-old coach. You either have to use the tools, use the lay of the land that exists now, or get the hell out.
Yeah.
I don't know who would hire Mike Gundy right now, but he's a whale of a football coach. Maybe he belongs in the group of 6 at this point, where there's less pressure, less money, and less NIL going on, because he wants to coach football. Let him go coach football if someone wants to take him.
I mean, that's true, but where is college football going? I mean, I don't see it slowing down anytime soon. I mean, Gundy is an old school coach. He didn't like the fact that players were getting paid. The one thing that I agreed, now don't get me wrong, there's more than one thing, but maybe the most important thing that I agreed with Mike Gundy on some of the things that he said about this was, remember, he said, and it was last year, have your agent stop calling us about money. It's the football season. It's time to play. The off season is time to negotiate. During the season is time to play. Like, even in the professional ranks, guys, teams don't negotiate new contracts for guys in the middle of the season. Now, every now and then in the NFL, you'll hear of a guy getting an extension, but it's usually, okay, maybe at the beginning or at the end or something, they get an extension, but nobody's saying, okay, well, my contract's going to be up. I'm just up. Let's get a new one. That's not the norm. So for that to be seeping into college football, these greedy, seedy agents that have literally no regulation whatsoever, calling because somebody had a good game. Hey, my guy had a good game. We need $1,500 more a week or whatever it happens to be. It's just insane. So I agree with that. But Gundy just didn't like the tools that were accessible. He didn't like the transfer portal. And look, now Dabo Swinney's not getting fired. If Clemson fires them, then they're absolute idiots. But he doesn't like it either. And, he's talking about this as well and doesn't like it. And you see Clemson struggling. You have to stay up with the times. If you don't, it's a problem, Fitz. It just is.
It is. If you could reply to Mclain real quick, my texts aren't going through to him. Yeah, this is the new era. I mean, it's I think we're going to see a wave of young coaches come in that are ready to handle this. I don't know if Zach Robinson fits the role or the mold of a young coach, the Atlanta Falcons offense coordinator and a former quarterback under Coach Gundy, but that seems like the logical hire. Now, you're more familiar with the logistics of NFL contracts and when he could come and all that stuff, but that seems like the logical choice. And if we can get Mclain on here pretty soon.
Yep, he's on. He's in here.
Okay, very good.
He's down there.
Okay, here we go. There he is.
Mclain, how are you doing, my man?
Better than some, you know. It's been a whirlwind of the last, I guess it's only been 45 minutes, but it's felt like 6 years in the last hour or so. But yeah, just lots going on.
You were ready for it though.
Ton going on. Again, everybody, this is Mclain Baxley, who covers Oklahoma State University for 24/7 Sports. Just kind of tell us, Mclain, like how this went down. When did everybody know? What's the feeling right now around the program?
Well, I kind of expected something to happen after Friday night's loss to Tulsa. 2 weeks ago, or I guess 3 weeks ago now, they lost to Oregon, 66 points, just a blowout. But you had the thing of Oregon's a national championship contender. They're really good. They were going to do that for a lot of teams, maybe not to the level that they did to Oklahoma State. And they had a bye week. They had 2 weeks to prepare for Tulsa, a team that they've won. The last 10 meetings with the Golden Hurricane. We're coming to Stillwater, and then from the get-go, Tulsa was the better team. I was listening to a podcast the other day where they said that if you had made everything black and white, you would have thought that the white team was the Power 5 team, Power 4 team, and they just weren't. I mean, from the get-go, on offense, defense, Tulsa wanted it more. They were more physical. They were more dominant on the lines, and won the game. 19-12 probably could have been even worse if they would have been able to convert touchdowns instead of field goals. So after that game, and just the way that Gundy talked in the post-game press conference, I just got the sense that Saturday morning I was going to wake up and the news was going to hit. So I prepared and kind of had some things ready and everything, and then nothing happens for a couple of days. He has his Monday press conference yesterday, and it was from the get-go. He seemed very scattered. I think he's a guy that had to have, he says he's not on social media. He says he's not, listening to the comments, listening to the fans, but he definitely is. And he's got to be aware that things were not going well. And so it seemed very scattered. We asked him a couple questions about his job status, his job security. And he was honest and said that I'm not going to resign. I'm not going to retire, and pretty much kind of forced whoever made the decision to do so. So then he had his coach's show last night, and it went well, talking to the fans through that. And then this morning things just they pulled the trigger. So it's definitely interesting timing. 3 days from now, they're going to be hosting Baylor for the Big 12 opener in Stillwater Saturday afternoon. And just, what's going to happen? Who's the interim? There's a lot of questions that are still having to be addressed in the coming days, in the coming weeks. But yeah, I mean, as of right now, I think the biggest takeaway is the timing. If you knew you were going to do this, why not do it Saturday night? Or Saturday morning? Why not do it Friday night before he goes home? Let him go through a full press conference, let him go through a full coach's show, seemingly prepare to be the head coach against Baylor. It's just an interesting timing, but something that I think has been needed for a while. I think back to December last year when, we thought that was going to be the end date. And obviously they worked their way through and went through spring training, spring camp and everything. And but yeah, just a whirlwind of a couple days since that Tulsa loss. That was really the final nail in the coffin, it felt like.
Mclain, you mentioned something there. Whomever pulled the trigger, what is the state of Oklahoma State's athletic department right now?
Good question, Tim. Chad Weiberg is currently operating without a contract. A few weeks ago at the Board of Regents meeting, the chairman of the board, Jimmy Harrell, was asked about an updated contract, a new contract for the athletic director, who's been there for several years, has done a fine job, made a couple of good hires. And the chairman said, that'll be addressed in the near future, or, at a later time. So what that looks like, I'm not sure. I don't know if they're going to want to fully clean house and let that new athletic director make this incredibly important hire. Only the first head football coach hired in the last 21 years. or they're just going to, restructure it. Weiberg is one of the lower paid ADs at the Power 4 level. He's I think $750 a year, $750,000 a year, and so he's it's not like they're breaking the bank for a guy. He's a family man. He's an Oklahoma State guy. His whole family went through here. And Tim, I know you're familiar with Chad and that family, and so it's just there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of uncertainty right now in an era, in a time of college athletics and college football where it is not ideal to be uncertain right now.
Right.
As NIL, with revenue sharing, with a potential conference realignment, all these things that are kind of working against Oklahoma State right now. That's something that me and the fellow beat writers have talked about how it's so important for Oklahoma State to get in line. I look at Texas Tech, where from the president to the AD to everybody involved, they know what their goals are. They know how they're getting to those goals. And then you look, up the road against Oklahoma State, where things are just kind of a mess. And so we'll see what they can get in the line in the next couple of weeks, or what that looks like and moving forward. But yeah, just a lot of uncertainty right now in Stillwater.
Yeah, and the NIL is a problem too, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, and I've heard with people that they've been holding back their donations or holding back spending on NIL until Gundy's gone, because there's some admitted mismanagement of the funds over the past couple of years. Gundy said that they weren't spending it the right way. They were using it as a retaining tool as opposed to as a recruiting tool, which kind of hurt them last season in 2024. They used the money to get back, Ollie Gordon and the offensive line and some of these guys that brought them to a Big 12 championship in 2023. Championship game, and lost to Texas, and then still had a 10-win season. They used it as a retaining tool as opposed to going out and getting better talent for the future. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of problems going on. But also NIL was not the reason they lost to Tulsa. And I know,
Right.
A few weeks ago there was comments, but Gundy made comments and kind of used. I think Dan Lanning at Oregon used that as motivation. The NIL comments he made, which I think we talked about how I thought it was way overstated, made a bigger deal than what it actually was. But Tulsa does not make as much money as Oklahoma State. They do not have as much, and they still dominated that game. So there were bigger problems than just NIL, than just transfer portal, than just these issues that I think people kind of compare Gundy and Dabo and some of these kind of older style coaches not wanting to adapt. I'm not sure as that was the immediate reason of why they've lost 11 of the last 12 games.
I think it was more Mclain, more of a talent level issue, and just not having the guys. I mean, we're seeing that at some of these other schools that are losing. I just think it was a talent level. Look, we also talked about last year's, like, even Oklahoma State in 2023 got to the Big 12 championship game, but it wasn't because of their quarterback, and they didn't replace the quarterback, and the quarterback play was bad last year, and they retained it, and it never got better. I'm not sure if it's going to be again. You pick a starter this year, and he gets hurt, after the second drive of the season. Not sure that's going to make that big a difference. It might have. Who knows? But I think that's part of the problem. I just think Oklahoma State right now just doesn't have talented football players. And whether it's NIL or if it's just recruiting misses, or whatever the case may be, I think that has more to do with it. But I say this all the time. In college, 65% of it is recruiting. You got to get the guys on campus. So if you don't, it's not like professional ranks where the guys get drafted. You got to get the guys on campus. And if you can't recruit the guys on campus, then you're not going to be very good. And I think that's kind of where Oklahoma State is right now. They just have a lack of talent.
Well, for most of Gundy's career, their whole philosophy was, get, under-recruited, 3-star kids, local or from Texas or from surrounding areas, get them on campus, let them be in the program for 1, 2, 3 years. And then by the time they're upperclassmen, they're developed, they're ready to compete, they're ready to be at that Power 4 level that, won so many games, early on in Gundy's career as coach. Now, when you're expected to kind of go into the transfer portal, when you're expected to recruit these kids that are expecting to play as freshmen, as sophomores, they're not to the level of, going out and playing against, big time schools. And then you look at I think, the Oregon game, again, as I said earlier, Oregon is a, would have won against most teams they would have played at home. But the discrepancy of talent that we saw from the get-go, offense, defense, special teams, was just, light years ahead. Obviously, there's a lot of resources that Oregon has that Oklahoma State doesn't or hasn't used. But Dan Lanning, this is his third or fourth year, and he's already got Oregon to the level where they're competing for championships. And then that goes back to recruiting, like you said, about just developing and going out and not being scared of. I think something that this new staff had done well. I'm curious if any of these staff members will stay around, if any of these recruits will stay around. That's something that was definitely impressive to me with this new staff, is they weren't scared to go against the big boys. They hired a bunch of assistants. They have been in the rooms at SEC, ACC, Big 12 or Big 10 programs, and we're going out and winning some of these battles. They've got several good recruits that they got committed to Oklahoma State over Oklahoma or Arkansas or Texas A&M or some of these bigger programs. They were able to win those battles, and they weren't scared to go into those rooms. Will any of those guys stick around? We'll find out. I've messaged a couple of guys, but yeah. So it all goes back to recruiting, like you said, and then just not having the time to develop them into where 5, 6, 7 years ago they were able to get that. You think back to the 2021 season when they made the Fiesta Bowl, were literally 2 yards away from a college football playoff appearance in the Big 12 championship. That took 2 or 3 years working under Jim Knowles to get, the 2020 season was way different than the 2021 season because he had time to get into Jim Knowles' system. And then that 2021 defense is one of the best in the country because they had time to develop and learn and get used to playing what they were supposed to do. So, Oklahoma State's never been the best recruiting. You look at our, recruiting rankings, they're never in the top 20, they're never in the top 30 usually, but they've been able to make up for that with time and development.
Mclain, first of all, folks, if you're not subscribing to the Oklahoma State Rivals site, or excuse me, 24/7 site, that was a flashback for me. 24/7 site. I said that for a long time in my career. 24/7. Make sure you do. Mclain's going to be all over this. He was already all over it. And one of the things he's already put out as a hot board, my friend, this seems like it points to Zach Robinson. I mean, it just feels like that should be it, but is it?
Maybe. I mean, I think that you look at, it's college football is all about what have you done for me lately? Well, lately he was shut out by, I'm a Panthers fan, and they were shut out by the Panthers. Their offense now, there's been a report, he's going to go on the sideline this upcoming week as opposed to working in the booth on game day. But yeah, he's an alumni. I think that's one thing that will be interesting to see if they stay with the Oklahoma State family. I think they're back, I guess 2 years ago now, year and a half ago, 2024, when they went out and hired David Taylor as the new wrestling coach. He was not an Oklahoma State guy. He's a big Penn State guy. He's, no real relationship to Oklahoma State. But he came in and immediately turned the wrestling program around and had a couple national champions. He's already regarded as one of the best wrestling coaches in the country now. He was not an OSU guy. Curious if Oklahoma State, whether that's Chad Weiberg, whether that's Jim Hess, the president, or whoever is making these decisions for the next coach, is so adamant about getting an OSU man, getting an OSU guy. And if they do, Zach Robinson is the clear favorite. He's had a success in Atlanta. He's had, he's been able to kind of bring along a young quarterback, Michael Penix Jr. Into a pretty good quarterback going into year 2. And it would make sense. And I'm curious, if they'll bring him in. There was talks, last year that they did, interview him and kind of gauge interest. But yeah, there's a lot of, it's the first time they've had to do this in 2 decades. So then, unfortunately, fortunately, there's nobody on staff that's, makes sense to be that, Doug Meacham's probably the guy that fits the bill the most. But if you've watched any of these games, the offense is just not there. So I don't know if you would hand the keys over to a guy that has struggled to move the ball. But yeah, I think Zach Robinson is a guy that's going to be at the top of most of these lists coming out in the next few weeks.
If not him, who?
I like G.J. Kinney. I think he's a Texas State coach. He has success recruiting Oklahoma and Texas, which how much does that matter now in the area of the transfer portal and using doesn't really matter where you come from, but I think that's something that is important still to Oklahoma State alumni and boosters is they want to be able to recruit Texas and Oklahoma. And he's got success there. He's won a lot at Texas State, which, prior to 2 or 3 years ago when he got there was not a winning place. And now he's, rattling off 8-9 win seasons. So he's a guy that I'm interested in seeing if they'll do anything with. I think he's ready to make that jump, from the group of 5 level to a power 4 job. But yeah, those are 2 of the guys that are definitely towards the top of the list early on in this process.
Right. I mean, some of those guys you're looking at, it's like the jump these days. I think Oklahoma State needs just a reset. I think they need to hire a young guy that understands the landscape, understand what's going on, and go that direction. Now, obviously, if you get a more tenured, more experienced guy that understands all that, you can go that route. But I think Oklahoma State, to me, and again, you can just look at Mike Gundy and say, hey, he was here for 21 years. I think it's a program that hey, I get this job, and it doesn't have to be a stepping stone job. Now, it wasn't going to be for Mike Gundy because he was an alumni, so it wasn't going to be a stepping stone job for him. But I think that's what they need to look at, because I don't think, look, you're in the Big 12. It doesn't have to be a stepping stone job for another one. I think this is a place that you can build roots. And if you do it right, you can build those roots there. I think that's the avenue they need to look at. I like the Zach Robinson situation. I get it that he's Oklahoma State, and maybe they want to go outside of that. I do. It's not that I'm rooting for anybody or anything like that, but I just like the Zach Robinson hire. I mean, he's a National Football League offensive coordinator. I think he's done a pretty good job. He's familiar with how the inner workings, at least how they used to work. Now, things clearly have changed, and he's in the NFL, and that's the whole thing. It's like you got to understand what's going on. But if he does, I think that's the guy. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I know there's not any favorites, and I know there's a lot of names out there. And I also know this is just super fresh, Mclain. It's not like, hey, they're ready to make a decision right now. But let me ask you this. Having said that, do you think a decision gets made? Like, do they say, okay, we're going to bring this guy in? I don't think you can hire somebody before December. It's not that they can't legally. It's just like guys are coaching. Like, you can't just hire somebody before December.
Yeah, no, I think but I think also getting out early and they're going to have extra time to, off the record or unofficially talk to people. They're the third Power 4 job opening now behind Virginia Tech and UCLA. They're out ahead of these SEC programs that are going to make changes. Arkansas is one that's, very likely going to be open. Florida, perhaps a couple of other, Big Ten, SEC, ACC schools that might have openings. Oklahoma State's going to get out in front of that, which is good for them. But yeah, I mean, I don't think, we're in week 4 of the season. The Oklahoma State still has 9 games to play. That's another issue that I'm sure whoever made this decision had to think about. Is that, with this new transfer portal era, players can transfer after 4 games. They've only played 3. Is the whole team going to sit out now in hopes of, transferring in the off season or what is this going to look like the next 9 games of the season? So, but yeah, as far as your direct question of a timeline, I think they're going to have to wait until at least the end of the season before they can actually go out and say, we have hired this person, because most likely and ideally they are currently coaching. You don't want to go out and get a guy that's unemployed or was fired last year and hasn't found a job yet. I don't think that's going to inspire too many people. I think, after the season at the earliest, and if it's a guy, an NFL person or a coach on a, playoff caliber team, well, they have to wait until those seasons end up. I think that'd be not a great scenario for them moving forward, but we'll see. And they feel confident about the hire. If it is Zach Robinson and Falcons, their regular season goes into the new year, even if they don't make the playoffs, would Robinson step away from a coordinator position to go start, building the transfer portal and recruiting the 2026 roster? I don't know, but yeah, I think the timeline is going to take a while before anything really gets nailed down as far as names.
Once again, if you're not subscribing to Go Pokes 24/7 now, you need to go do it right now. Mclain will be all over this. Are you surprised it happened? I mean, I agree with you. Why did you wait a few days? And the Monday press conference now just seems absurd
Ludicrous.
that they let that happen. But did you see an in-season firing here? I thought they'd let him run the course, but I also didn't think they'd be this bad.
Yeah, they're really bad. Even with Gundy, I mean, K-State's a maybe win, but other than that, I'm not sure there's a win on this schedule. I think maybe unfortunately for Gundy, they didn't play K-State earlier in the year because that might have been a win. But then who knows, that team would have been inspired and come out and won 44-0 again. But no, I am a little, because Mike Gundy, as controversial or as fiery as he's been over the past 20 years, he is without a doubt the most important person in Oklahoma State football history. He didn't win a Heisman, but he won tons of games and played here and quarterbacked the Heisman winner and also Thurman Thomas, and has spent most of his life in Stillwater, and he's going to get a statue. And I just think the handling of it is interesting. Obviously, based off of yesterday's comments, it was clear that Gundy was not going to resign, or maybe he did end up taking a pay cut for the buyout, not making them pay the full $15 million. We don't know that yet, but it seems like they just announced a press conference later today. But yeah, it's just I think it's interesting that they didn't wait until the end of the season, because like we said earlier, I don't know, they're not going to be able to hire anybody tomorrow. They're not going to be able to hire anybody in 2 weeks. I thought when they lost to Oregon and they lost to Tulsa, I thought the best, they didn't fire him on Friday night. I thought the best move would be the bye week. I think they play Kansas on November 2nd, and they have a bye week before the last 3 games of the regular season. I think that time would have been a good time into the season. Give him, a final home game against Kansas State. He's a guy that always, loved Bill Snyder and, looked up to him, and kind of the Kansas State, Oklahoma State, rivalry, or just, respect those programs have for each other. Would have been a good send-off, final game against, for Mike Gundy's coaching career, or just announce, hey, this is your last season. These are your last 3 games. Enjoy them. And so to kind of just pull the rug out again on a Tuesday, it's just bizarre, I think.
With
and I think
portal implications.
I don't think I'm alone in that. I don't think we're alone in that. It's odd timing, midweek as opposed to right after the game. Either right after the game against Tulsa or right after the game against Baylor, if and when they lose that game, to go 0-1 in Big 12 play. But yeah, it's just peculiar. And I think, not to sympathize, fully, but it's just bizarre that somebody that spent, his whole life building up this program and putting a lot into it, just kind of letting him walk off in the sunset like that is just weird. And maybe we will, similar to Gary Patterson or some of these other greats that have stepped away or been fired. Maybe they will end up honoring him at some point, but it's just interesting. I'm curious, what Saturday's going to look like, with the fans. Friday night, they were chanting "Fire Gundy." Now that he's fired, I mean, are they still gonna show up to the masses for a problem? Oklahoma State's a 20-point underdog. It's not going to be a pretty game, I don't think. So I'm just curious, what the fan reaction is going to be, what the player reaction is going to be on Saturday. A lot of these players came here because of Gundy, because of what he's built. So yeah, it's just going to be a lot going on.
Yep.
Gotcha.
You brought up Bill Snyder, and Sean Snyder's still with the football program, isn't he?
He is.
That would be an interesting interim. A guy who's got pedigree of a head coach. I don't know if he is a head coach, but then everyone on the staff keeps doing what they're doing. I'll be really interested to see what direction they go with the interim coach, because you brought in all new guys. It seems uncomfortable to promote one of them after they too have failed. So this is going to be fascinating.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, Mclain, look, man, I know you got a ton that you has going on right now. We're going to let you go, my man, and go handle that. We absolutely appreciate you giving us your time today. And we look forward to all the good stuff that you're going to be talking about with this. And, well, I shouldn't say good stuff, just stuff in general you're going to be talking about with this. And I'm sure I'll be talking to you soon, man. So thank you again for your time today.
All right, thanks, y'all.
Mm-hmm. Well, there it is, our main man, Mclain Baxley just fits. I mean, look, it doesn't even seem like there's a plan. And maybe
No.
there is. They're going to have a press conference, so I'm sure they're going to announce the interim coach then. And I guess that's kind of how it's done. They'll announce it then. Weird timing, like I said, and maybe it was one of those things where they said, you know what, we want you to resign, and maybe Gundy's like, nope, I'm not resigning. But do it Monday, do it Sunday. Have that conversation on Saturday. Look, man, it's over. What do you want to do? Do you want to resign or do you want us to fire you? Nope. And they let it go on.
What an awful position Oklahoma State University's in. It was obvious they needed to let him go, but letting him go now could lead to horrible things for the football program. If everyone that has a red shirt available says, I'm shutting it down, I'm going to be out of here. That's the peril now of firing in season. They should have, I'm going to be honest, for Oklahoma State's sake, they should have waited beyond 4 games.
Yep.
They should have
waited. I know that's being selfish as a program, but
you got a business.
Your job is to look out for the program.
Yeah. That's your business. You got to run your business. So I find this curious. I find this hurried and rushed. I wonder if there's more to this story. Who knows?
Maybe.
Maybe that conversation turned into more than a conversation. We don't know. I just find it curious. They did it right now. Before the NIL and transfer portal ever existed, you would do it right now.
Correct.
But now there's that layer in there. What if a bunch of guys say, I'm done, I'm not playing anymore? Well, if you're already, I don't know how they handled their roster situation, is everyone has to get down to 105, but you run out of players real quick, at least decent players.
Yeah, you will.
What
And maybe the situation on that fits. Maybe it's the other way. Maybe the players are like, you know what? I'm glad he's gone and I'm staying. I'm going to finish it. I find that hard to believe in a transfer portal era where guys would say, oh, I came here because of the coach. Oh, now the coach is gone. Oh, great. Now I'll play better. Or now things are better. I'd find that hard to believe. This is going to be tough for Oklahoma State, man. This is going to be tough. And not only that you have to play out the rest of their season. I mean, they're not going to win another game. Well, they probably won't win another game. It's college football. You never know what can happen. Yep. Having said that, it's going to get way worse before it gets better. And then they have to make a home run hire. With the state of what their program is in, you can't mess around and just, oh, well, we missed on this one. If you do that in this era, number one, you're in a possibility when conference realignment comes in, and we know it's going to come, you could get left out. Now, I don't think Oklahoma State would be one of those teams, but who the hell knows, man? Who knows? So it's tough. This one's it's just weird, Fitz. It feels weird to me. It feels necessary. Don't get me wrong, but it just feels weird timing.
We're seeing a painful transition from a generation of head coaches in this conference who have been really good. Patterson, Gundy, Snyder. I'm leaving someone out here. And time moves on. The game has changed drastically. And you got to find someone who understands what college football is about right now. Honestly, does a guy from the NFL grasp it? Or do you go find someone that's a head coach? Mclain's got some interesting names on his hot board that are tangible and certainly worth looking at. But when can you start that process? When will a coach actually want to talk to you, even if it's top secret via Zoom right now? I don't know. Wow. This is amazing. It really is. We're seeing a epic changeover in coaching. If you can't keep up, man, you're going to get left behind. It doesn't matter what your name is.
Yeah. It's tough. But that's the way of the world, man. Things change. Things constantly change. And if you don't stay, and it's just in anything, if you don't stay up with it, it passes you by. It's difficult, but that's where we are with it now, Fitz. I appreciate everybody being in here. Thank you guys again. Like I said, I know we're basically cross competing with ourselves, and I know there's some people that came over that were watching the power rankings that came over. We appreciate you guys for doing that. But it was just important. I was going to wait, and then Fitz like, nope, we got to do it now. I'm like, yep, you're right. Got to get it out now. So I appreciate everybody. I don't have anything else, Fitz. I just think this is a crazy, crazy time for Oklahoma State fans. That's what I think that's who I feel so bad for, is because where the program is. I feel bad for the fans because those are some proud people.
Got it.
And to see their program in literally
shambles
over a year and a half just fall completely apart, it's disheartening. It's disheartening. And then to see the coach that so many people revered for so long publicly check out. That's the part that I think fans had a hard time with. And I feel bad for them for that, Fitz.
You're right. They're incredible fans. They deserve a great hire. They deserve to get Oklahoma State football back to where it was. Well, boy, we're seeing some programs that were fairly established fall on some hard times because of the changing landscape. I thought it was interesting how Mclain described the recruiting, the developmental program. Is that still tangible in this era of college football? I don't know. And I don't know who they're going to hire, but they better get this one right.
Absolutely. Well, thanks everybody again for being in here. We appreciate you guys. If you still have time, go on over and check out the power rankings. That premiere is going on right now, people. But until next time, we will talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a good one.
Thank you for watching the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. This has been a Spirit Street production.